Part 1. The First Victim. Detective Thomas was known for his uncanny ability to decipher the mind of even the most twisted criminals. With a string of unsolved murders plaguing the city, his expertise was in high demand. But this new case was unlike any he had encountered before. The first victim, a young woman named Emily, was found in a dimly lit alleyway. Her lifeless body bore the marks of a meticulous killer. Thomas carefully examined the crime scene, trying to piece together the puzzle before him. Every move, every detail mattered, and he knew that time was of the essence. Part 2. The Mysterious Message. Days turned into weeks, and the body count kept rising. The serial killer seemed to be playing a deadly game with the police, taunting them with cryptic messages left at the crime scenes. Each note contained a riddle, leading the investigators on a twisted chase through the city. As Thomas analyzed the messages, he began to see patterns in the killer's psyche. It was evident that the murderer enjoyed the thrill of the hunt, deriving sadistic pleasure from the fear he instilled in the public. The detective knew that this killer wasn't going to stop until he was caught. Part 3. A Breakthrough. In the midst of the chaos, a breakthrough came when Thomas discovered a pattern connecting the victims. All the women were connected to a local charity organization. The killer seemed to be targeting those he perceived as weak, using their vulnerability to satisfy his sick desires. With this new information, Thomas and his team put together a list of potential targets, hoping to prevent further bloodshed. But as the investigation intensified, so did the killer's game. He taunted the detective with personal messages, revealing that he was always one step ahead. Part 4. The Final Confrontation. The tension in the city reached its peak when the killer struck again, this time taking a victim close to Thomas, his former partner, Sarah. The murderer's message was chilling: "You're next." Determined to end the reign of terror, Thomas isolated himself from the world, immersing himself in the killer's twisted mind. He knew he had to understand the man behind the murders to anticipate his next move. As Thomas delved deeper, he uncovered the killer's troubled past, a childhood filled with abuse and neglect. It was a pivotal revelation that provided insight into the monster he was dealing with. Part 5. The Trap is Set. Using the killer's background as a guide, Thomas devised a plan to lure him out of the shadows. He planted false information, leading the killer to believe that Thomas was vulnerable and easily accessible. It was a dangerous gambit, but he knew it was their best chance at catching the psychopath. Late one evening, Thomas received a call from an unknown number. It was the killer. He taunted Thomas, laughing at his efforts to stop him. Little did the killer know that the call had been traced, and the police were closing in on his location. Part 6. The Showdown. The final showdown took place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Thomas stood alone, ready to confront the embodiment of evil. The killer reveled in the anticipation of their meeting, relishing the opportunity to see the fear in the detective's eyes. In a chilling game of cat and mouse, Thomas led the killer through the darkened warehouse, relying on his instincts and years of experience. With each step, the tension mounted until, at last, they faced each other in a dimly lit room. Part 7. Justice Served. The killer lunged at Thomas with a deranged grin, but the detective was prepared. In a swift and decisive move, he disarmed the killer and apprehended him. The sadistic game was finally over. As the police took the killer into custody, Thomas couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief for catching the murderer, grief for the lives lost, and empathy for the tortured soul before him. In the end, justice was served, but the scars left behind would linger for a lifetime. Epilogue. Detective Thomas stood at the crime scene one last time, contemplating the darkness that had consumed the killer's life. He knew that the fight against evil would never truly end, but he also understood the importance of the light he brought to the lives he touched. As he walked away, he knew that he would carry this case with him forever. It had changed him, but he refused to let it break him. Instead, he would use it as fuel to continue his mission, protecting the innocent, seeking justice, and never letting the darkness win.